Everyone. We'll go ahead and open the meeting. This is a work session, so we're not, this isn't a formal hearing um, to vote and put forward anything. But we will have a couple more public hearings before the end of the month. But we did need to go back through the multifamily ordinance. Are you with us? Okay. Okay, you want to take, okay. All right, so if everybody can grab the commercial industrial district draft, that's on your second page. What we've done is take some of the things that we had talked about that came up in the last meeting and tried to work some of those things into the existing commercial industrial district. So we had talked originally about creating new districts, but we didn't actually have full-blown ordinances for that. And I think we found a way to just make adjustments to the existing ordinance that work in the issues that we talked about. So the things that are new from the last version are highlighted, although we've talked about these and you've seen them for the most part. So the first one is that we took the language that we talked about last time about multifamily development not being permitted in the industrial zone on Pine Road with a reference to current state law. We put that in here. So this is a paragraph that already said no housing on that part of Pine Road. So we're just sort of clarifying that also includes multifamily. And that's something we're allowed to do under the law. The next item is we talked about differentiating between different types of industrial uses and knowing now that we are required to allow multifamily in our commercial zone, which in Brentwood is a commercial industrial zone. We wanted to kind of differentiate between the kinds of uses that we see right now on 125 and 27 and the kinds of uses that you might see on Pine Road. So we've said, with the exception of the commercial industrial district of Pine Road, industrial uses in the commercial industrial zone shall be limited to light industry. And then if you flip back a few pages, you'll see a definition of light industrial, which we talked about last time. Last time we had a industry definition and a light industry definition. So what we've done is we took the light industry definition that we talked about and then basically said that excludes those industrial uses that are more extractive, using raw materials, hazardous materials, and having those a lot of outdoor operations and external effects like noise, vibration, odor, and dust. So that is how we're proposing weaving light industry into the ordinance. Any questions so far? Keep going. Okay. The next thing, if you go like 4 pages in, 3 pages in, external setbacks and internal setbacks. So we realized that the draft ordinance that we had was addressing multifamily in terms of the types of structures that were allowed and the density and the guidelines for design. We're deleting the existing multifamily districts on North Road, and by doing that, we were losing this content here that's highlighted, so we've put it back in. So I think that was just an oversight of, and as we've been trying to go back through and make sure that when we change one thing in one place, we're not mixing things up somewhere else. And then the last thing is just updating the residential agricultural district definition that currently says that includes all land, not including commercial industrial or the professional office district, but since we're repealing the professional office district, that needs to be deleted. And then the multifamily professional description is 300-001-002. That would be taken out. And then the current multifamily district zoning and current professional office district zoning would be taken out. So that is where we're at. I know there was one question that that Glenn raised is in the existing multifamily ordinance, when you look at internal setbacks, the last item, maximum building coverage, it's limited to 25% of the developable land. But in other cases, that's, in other parts of our ordinance, it's 40%. And that was your recommendation that we change that. So we need tonight to make any final changes. Final meaning it would go, then be posted for a public hearing and a vote. Once we do that, and this is just how the law works, we can't make any substantive changes. So
those changes have to happen tonight.
yes. We can make, you know, if there's a typo or something's numbered wrong or something like that, we can fix it, but we can't make substantive changes. We're, you know, in the time frame we have. So I'll open it up for discussion. Do you have some thoughts?
Yeah, I thought this was discussed last week when I wasn't able to be here, but it doesn't appear that it was. And so if people would just go to the first page of the commercial industrial district, the very last paragraph on that page, carrying on to the top of the next page, and then the second paragraph on the next page. I'm not sure, I don't recall us ever having these discussions that we were changing the existing commercial zone lot sizes to differ from what they are now. This is differing from what they are now. And so I thought we weren't making that change, but this is saying we are making that change. And I'm concerned as to why we would be making that change.
I think we talked about it quite a while ago, and it's been in there, but maybe it needs to be revisited.
I'd really love to revisit it because I don't really see the reason why we would change the overall difference in our commercial zone to go back to the standards that we have for our residential development. I think it was definitely one of the attempts by our consultants to show us where we could show flexibility in the existing zone. But in my mind, I blew right over that advice. Now, if that wasn't how the rest of the board felt, I am happy understanding that that isn't the case. But I just don't remember us talking about it a lot, and I would be really concerned if we don't talk about it.
That's why I called you home last week.
We'll just.
Yeah, and when
I admit I never had the understanding or the thought that we were changing the size of the lots or the frontage. I don't know if this was just a typo.
No, I think
No.
I think I remember when they did it. The
Resilient.
reason they said they were doing it was to show us ways that we could make our commercial district more flexible for housing, for the multifamily housing. But I don't see how imposing the residential agricultural standards in our commercial zone to encourage multifamily housing is such a great thing. It just changes completely the way we've looked at the commercial zoning for the last 30 years. Because we're not proposing single-family houses in the commercial zone. We're proposing multifamily housing, and having lots that are starting at 3 acres makes more sense for multifamily anyway.
When we spoke about this in my office, you said you were going to incorporate it in a draft, and I just never saw
And
that
then
draft.
It didn't happen, yeah.
Right, and I would agree with Mr. Greenwood that the sanctity of our commercial district is just as important as multifamily housing. And I think lowering that standard, I just don't think it's a wise decision.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like.
You
it's-
open it up to more single-family units.
Which we
I-
allow.
Which we allow, but you have
but
to
we don't
build them,
overly encourage. and-
right, but you have to build them to the standards of a commercial
Commercial,
lot of
right,
300
exactly.
feet and 3 acres.
The subject concept may be deserving more discussion, but not at this late in this late in the game, where we've got 1 week basically to make any changes. And we need to have a discussion, because I'll raise my hand. Any other members may raise their hand if they never thought of this change having been advocated by the board.
I definitely remember it as a discussion, and the board didn't seem to object to it, but if you would like to object to it, we can strike it and change it
I
right
think-
now.
I think we should make that the case.
I didn't hear any stated advocacy for that change in any of our meetings.
I think the only thing is on the setbacks, I think they were trying to say what we have is maybe a little restrictive, overly restrictive, and they backed it off a little bit, but
And the setback, it was because of Kingston. Kingston is also 100 feet. And the state, we went a little further, I believe, than the state. The state is 100 feet.
Well, the state encouraged both Plastow and Kingston to go to 100 feet
Mhm.
back in 1991 when they did their big Route 125 corridor study. And so both communities incorporated the 100 feet. But at that point, Brentwood already had a 125-foot setback. And the state doesn't care about that. The state asked those two towns to change it because there was active building going on closer to the highway that the
Yeah.
town thought, that the state thought they would have to be buying when they did an expansion of 125. And they didn't want to see that happen to any greater extent. When they looked up the corridor and saw that that Brentwood was 125, they were pleased as punch because it didn't mean they were gonna be
Yeah.
buying properties.
So really, that 100-foot
States.
is just coming into congruency with Plastow and Kingston.
Exactly.
And I don't see any particular harm in it myself.
okay, so for discussion for the board, we're talking about 300, 002, 001, 004, and 300, 002, 001, 005. All the strikeout and underline that you see would be reverted to the old language, the
Which is
original
the
language.
original existing language.
Does anybody object to that?
No, I think that's
I don't think
the right
so.
way to go.
Just to kind of wrap my own head around why they would even propose it as just smaller lots. You could have more housing in theory,
think-
but
Yeah,
I think that was the idea with the
But
setbacks, is
with
that it
it
would
being
give you
We're not even sure.
125,
space.
we
Right.
don't want a bunch of small lots with individual drives. We want to consolidate. Yeah, I think we're all on the same page.
Yeah, it seems like we're unanimous.
especially when you're talking about higher density. I think the extra acres is needed.
Yeah.
Does the old language have the 3 acres? Because I'm not seeing it in there.
It's in our board.
I think
In
it's
.004.
the 120,000.
Yeah, the
square feet.
120,000 feet that you see there stricken out,
Yeah.
that's 3 acres.
Oh, okay. We want to say, do we
3
want to
acres
change it?
instead of 2 acres?
We could, yeah, we would definitely want to.
Yeah,
Oh.
300 feet of road
Yeah.
frontage and 3 acres of property.
Yeah.
Mark, may I grab a pen out of your office? I got it
Absolutely,
from-
sir, absolutely.
And some Snickers. Oh my goodness, just bring one of those bags. They really are just sitting there.
All right, Glenn, was there anything else that you wanted to
No,
raise?
no, that's what I wanted to say.
Other discussion from the board about what we have? I know we've had a lot of discussion at the last meeting. I know there was a community meeting, just an open meeting, some of us went to, where we talked about some different ideas. But it seems well, I want to ask the board where you're at right now. Are you comfortable with what we're proposing?
I mean, I like the idea of the first floors of the multifamilies being at 50% retail, because it accomplishes two tasks. First of all, it gets more business into Brentwood, taking a little bit of the onus off the individual property owners, taxpayers. And I just think it would be something we should really take a close look at. I don't think we really have. And after it was pointed out in the RSA that we could mandate up to 100%, I think 50% is a good bargaining place to go.
Yeah, and just to follow on that, I think it, that kind of retail underneath, townhomes might very well be the kind of retail that the town, has been looking for, like, your little sub shops or, those kinds of like retail type places that might be more attractive along 125 than some of the commercial, storage places, things like that. Not to denigrate the storage places, because I have an office in front of one.
So the retail would include professional office uses, certainly.
And that as well, yeah.
That's something our community survey, one of the big items of interest to townspeople was to preserve and enhance our commercial activity on 125.
So are you prepared to go to 45 feet, 50 feet in height?
I was looking on page, so if you look at your, I asked Glenn if there's comment on this, if you look in your zoning book on page 26. Read that to you. It says maximum building height, this is under 300, 002, 007, 006. Number 3, maximum building height, 35 feet. No, I think the intent of that maximum allowance all along was to allow the fire department to potentially rescue people in living spaces.
Correct.
So I think the intent of that 35 feet, it should have actually said 35 feet of living space.
But we don't have a ladder truck. I mean, that's all kind of predicated on the fire department not having a ladder truck.
Well, it's, of course, we have a lot of mutual aid from other towns who have taller ladders. But I guess I don't see this as would be in conflict of allowing 35 feet of living space in height would not be in conflict with our presumption that we were enacting that 35-foot rule to preserve or to be sure that we didn't have public health or public safety issues resolved.
The ordinance is very clear to me. Maximum building height, 35 feet. I don't, you'd have to change that. I mean, you can change that if you want, but I don't see any vagueness in that.
I would be concerned that you're still talking about residential
Correct.
houses. So if the building's on fire, the building's on fire, and you want to be able to cover
Hit
the
people.
whole, cover the whole thing.
Right,
I think
because
that was the thinking of the fire department, that they had apparatus that they could do rescues at 35 feet, but not beyond the 35 feet. I don't know what your thoughts on that, Glenn, are. I mean, I think as Mark says, we would have to change it. It would be a minor change that we could notice for a public hearing next week.
no, it wouldn't be next week.
Yeah,
It would be the 29th. So.
Right, it's the 29th.
What, I'm just wondering too about, since we haven't had a lot of discussion, and I do agree that there's, we have heard from people too about wanting more commercial options. I think 50% is a lot, especially since we're talking about relatively, and maybe not for what people think of, but in the grand scheme of things, relatively small developments. If it was something more like 10 or 20%, so that you would still get something, like, let's say you have a, one building out front and a couple out back, kind of like someone proposed a while back. So you might have some retail in those buildings closer to 125, and then it's all housing in the back.
I would be a little more comfortable with that.
In one of the online references, stated a maximum of 20% they were advocating for, and I've got to find, you have so much paperwork. But one of the online discussions of the new House bill referenced a maximum retail requirement of 20%.
Just for now, let's have some more board discussion. I want to hear from everybody, and then we'll invite public comment.
Personally, I think 15-20%, and that's what we had in one discussion. But then we learned that it could be 100%. So, you know, what's realistic? I mean, we probably aren't going to have a need or requirement for 50% of that space being available in a small town. But, you know, 20%.
You also have to keep in mind what that does to the residential area above. If you're limited to 35 feet and the first floor is just commercial, you're only going to have a single floor living above it. That's why other communities allow you to go 3 stories, 4 stories. Look at downtown Exeter for an example. Those are probably what, 2, 3 stories above the residential use itself. I mean, the commercial use itself. So
But that's assuming 100% on the ground floor, right?
100%.
Yes.
Yeah, of retail on the ground. I mean, if you did something like we were just discussing.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I just want you to be aware of that what's going to be limited above that. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, just to clarify, this would be like 20% on the ground floor, not the
Yeah,
total.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Glenn, do you have a thought on that, whether it be 20%, 50%?
My concern on hearing this originally was that because I've been dealing with it in another community, with the limitation of 35 feet, we're already talking about not having the ability to provide multifamily housing that a lot of other communities do if they are able to go 3 and 4 and 5 stories. Communities like Portsmouth that are 4 and 5 stories high, sure, I think that's a great idea to have retail on the whole first floor. Because historically, that's what it's always been anyway. But we're saying that we're going to tell developers that some percentage of the first floor of what are likely only going to be 2-story developments are going to have to be retail space. And that concerns me with somebody coming to us and saying, you're not making my multifamily development possible. Because we're already not providing the density that most multifamily ordinances allow. We started up there at 12 and 16 units, and we have backed all the way down to 6 and 8. And I think that there is the chance that we're going to have developers telling us that you mandating retail space instead of multifamily detracts from my development.
I think that's a problem.
Even if it were a smaller percentage of, say, 15 or 20%.
I think because we have already backed off the density as much as we likely can do.
Yep.
I mean, we've had a couple of responsible developers tell us they can do things at this level, but it's their threshold has been how I've heard them talking to us.
Yes.
That is their bottom threshold. And now we're going to say, besides that, you're losing, even if it's only 20%. That's 20% of the ability to provide multifamily housing.
But why is it a loss to the developer if they're able to sell 20% on the bottom? And I don't know what that would equate in terms of a loss of a residential unit, but then they get to sell that as a commercial
Sure,
unit
I think some
Why is that a
developers,
loss
I think
necessary?
some housing developers never want to be a commercial leasing agent and a residential leasing agent. They want to be a multifamily development.
It's not necessarily being a leasing agent. I would imagine that it would be more of of a transaction or a sale.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't worry about so much. I mean, there's, obviously people are doing it, right? So there are some
Sure.
that don't want to do it, and there's some that do want, that's kind of up to them. My original thought when this came up was, wouldn't this potentially help with affordability? Because those units above would probably be rental and they'd probably be smaller. So sort of by design, we might get some units that were more attainable than just, you know, 2-bedroom luxury.
Could you group that percentage? Say you had 4 buildings and 10% of the first floor of each building would have to be retail. Could you group that into one building?
That's the way I was thinking about it. It's-
Well,
if
I
you
want to make
had-
sure, I want to,
Well, let's say,
Yeah.
of course, we've long heard from people proposing developments in town that in order for a commercial venture to be successful.
Yeah, frontage.
You really have to have that frontage. You have to be able to drive right off the road and up to the business.
Yeah.
So if you had a situation like what you're talking about,
Mhm.
you could group that business section toward the front and leave the.
Yeah,
That's what I was
that's where-
saying. If you
where-
had, if there were 4 buildings, the one closest to the highway would be the one that had
Yeah, you'd be
some
hurting,
cafes and things.
you'd be
and then
hurting
the ones-
retail if you're
yeah.
pushing
you-
it.
you-
Right, and the ones in the
back
back
of the
would
line.
be.
You're setting a
No, that
business
makes
up for failure without frontage and
Just
Invisibility.
invisibility.
Just
yeah.
wondering, for sake of discussion, like, do we fear if we don't put some sort of percentage mandate that no one's ever gonna put commercial space in these buildings? Like,
That would be my
Still an
fear.
option.
The
yeah.
townspeople spoke and said
Right.
that the commercial activity was important to them, or commercial ventures in Brentwood were important to them for accessibility to stores and services. This is obviously a new discussion we're having tonight on this particular portion of the ordinance. So would it be possible for the people in the audience who have, someone who have,
When the chair is ready, she'll ask for public comment, Bruce. Thank you.
that it might aid in the discussion?
I understand. I just want to make sure that everybody on the board has first pass. So anybody on the board, we haven't heard from everybody? Any other thoughts?
I'll just say in terms of the requiring requiring retail. Because I've talked to a few folks about this, including at the event this past weekend. I find the idea intriguing because, excuse me, I do think that, more business is good for Brentwood, and it would fit into, our goals with workforce housing and all that. The more I've reflected on it, the more concerned that I am, because of we have already made this ordinance really as restrictive as we can in terms of density. So as I've reflected on it, I've become more concerned about that. I am intrigued by your idea, Kristen, of like grouping the buildings together. If we're going to do something like this, that's probably the way I would be most comfortable doing it, because I am concerned that we're starting to venture into territory where we're not really complying with the spirit of the RSA if we keep going too far.
Yeah, I would think it could be something like X% of the total first floor square footage.
Mhm.
So not of each building.
Yeah.
but
Each building,
the
right.
The
total.
totality of the buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I would be more comfortable with that than So
I mean-
and one last thought, if we, it's not our last chance to ever update ordinances, we could always
True.
put it out there without the requirement, see how it goes. If no one ever puts in commercial in a few years, go back and revisit it. No, my fear is just tying people's hands and making it less likely to get any pitches.
that's
a
why I'm
good
still
point.
kind of torn.
Yep.
So I'm still torn a bit. But
So other ways to do it are to treat it like we are workforce, where you get a bonus, density bonus, if you do mixed use.
Mhm,
That
I
could be-
kind of wish this discussion had parlayed into something like that,
mhm.
or given a choice that you get a density bonus if you put in so many percentage of the square foot of the homes themselves.
I like that even better,
I-
frankly.
Yeah.
It's a trade-off. It's a parlay.
It seems to strike a good balance,
Are-
because we do want to encourage the retail development, but I do worry about it coming at the expense of
Of the house.
of both complying with the law and,
Right.
and the goals that we're
Because
trying.
we've skinnied down our density calculation to the point of marginal.
Yeah,
So you could
And-
say, you know, you can have another 10% or whatever we're talking about, square footage, if it's retail on the first floor. So it basically doesn't count against
right.
your calculation.
That's
Thoughts?
interesting.
I'm not exactly sure how that would work, given that the calculations are based on bedrooms.
They're not really based on bedrooms. They are and they aren't.
There and there.
It-
Yeah.
Yeah. But you can break those bedrooms down into units. I mean,
Yeah.
you're only allowed so many units, and how you want to break down those bedrooms. Land can only support so many bedrooms. That's kind of why that calculation is there. The land for septic can only support so many units. We have so many bedrooms. We have to break that bedroom calculation down into units. The buildings themselves with the setbacks, how is they fit on the property? Every property is unique in that fashion of how many buildings you can fit on it with the setbacks, the wetlands applied, and the bedroom calculations. It all goes hand in hand.
And the other thing that we need to keep in mind in terms of not being too restrictive is that there are a lot of limits in terms of how much of our land is developable to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a built-in restriction before we even do anything.
Yep. Yep. And we do have a percentage in here, which we need to talk about tonight too, of the, like land coverage. So we're putting a limit on that too, even, within what's developable.
Which even further
Yeah.
limits the amount of buildings that you can have on the site and impervious surface. So.
Nate, did you have any comments?
Just grab your,
Just, there you go. Just pull that towards you.
I do like the idea of a percentage of retail or the potential. I mean, don't have a huge corridor of commercial in Brentwood to begin with, and there's a big push for residential, and they could swallow up and not leave potential commercial down the road
Mm-hmm.
for the town.
Okay.
Not a huge percentage.
Anything else before I open to public comment? Not that we
Well,
can't
I think,
keep
we
talking
just
about it, but-
made the point that other people have made here tonight, Steph did, that these ordinances are fluid. So in order to preserve some of the wishes of the townspeople in promoting commercial activity, I think we ought to go for 15% this year as a requirement, or 20%, whatever the group decides. You can always change that another year if you get pushback or you have rational reasons from developers, evidence that this is a real negative impact on the overall rationale for having multifamily. This can be changed another year, but all towns are going to go through the same thing. I mean, we're one of probably at least 130 towns in the state that are facing the same concern about how do we draft this to, satisfy the needs of and the concerns of the whole town.
So if anyone has public comment, if you can come up to our new lectern and
You could just please
introduce
state,
yourself.
if you could just please state your name, please.
Yes, Mark, thank you.
I
Bob
know.
Wolfchuk,
But there's no camera this
BBD
evening.
Drive.
That's why.
First of all, thank you guys for doing all the years of work on all the housing challenges. It's really been impressive to see all the grants. I'm really encouraged by this most recent discussion that this gentleman brought up about commercial, because as it's kind of been summarized, we have a very limited commercial district. The commercial district is what's going to subsidize some of the high taxes we're paying as residents. And the more that this ordinance is so attractive to developers, like someone just said, it could all turn into residential. So I think everyone's going to be learning as they go through this process. And I think Bruce had an excellent point at the end. There's an adjustment period, right? There's no specific formula. Mark sent me a 121-page document this afternoon with a dozen towns that are all picking at this in a completely different fashion. So because every multifamily unit that's built is going to raise all of the taxes of the single-family home residences, because those units are not going to cover their costs most likely if a family moves into it. We already know that in a new development, a single-family home probably doesn't cover the school if they have kids and everything else. So
Within that
may I
document,
finish, please?
absolutely.
Thanks. So with my assumption that these units potentially will cost other taxpayers more money, commercial could be a way to offset that. And so I would strongly recommend that 100% of the first floor be commercial. Not every retail or professional space needs highway access. If you're a financial advisor like myself, or a lawyer, or doctors, or anything else, you could have a sign out front. It's not like you're selling a product. Most people are coming because they've seen an ad or something else. So I think you need to err on the side of the residents, not the developers. And as long as we're meeting the spirit of the law, and the spirit of the law could be from a minimum to a maximum, that you should err on the side of the taxpayers, because that's who you're representing, and make sure that if we don't get any of the first year, not the end of the world. Let's make it 80% commercial the next year, or let's figure out if we have a bigger fire truck to add a second floor. We don't have to jump in with both feet to the detriment of the taxpayers right off the bat. Let's take it slow, figure it out. There's many other towns with different proposals going through town meetings this year. Let's see what gets passed. Let's see what's out there. And so please take it slow. Don't go to the extreme of no commercial or 20%. I mean, I hear the other arguments. Maybe it's not going to be as profitable for a developer. So what? They don't need to make 30%. If they only say they're making 10%, it's not worth it, then that's their problem. They could go find another town with a different ordinance or a different project where they could make some higher return. So please, thank you for bringing up commercial. Please err on the side of the residents. Put in a stricter ordinance rather than a looser one. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Just a couple things I want to say. One is, I think we have been working and continue to work on behalf of the residents, which include, the feedback that we've gotten that they want more housing options. People who want to downsize, people who want their kids to be able to stay in the community, people who work here. So that's been a huge part of this discussion. I think, and I haven't delved deeply into this, but I think some of that research that's been done on costs is maybe not as applicable here in this state, the way our taxes are designed, and recent. Some of that research is a bit older, and maybe not as applicable here in the situation that we're in, especially with, the numbers in our schools going down and having fixed costs. So I didn't want to let that statement hang out there that, building means costing taxpayers money, because I don't agree with that. And I do think that we are trying our best to represent residents as well.
Within that document that I sent you, these are not what people are going through. These are documents of long-term tracking of workforce housing developments. And it gives you statistical facts on how many children it put in school systems, the legislation that was passed when they passed it, some of the trials and tribulations of the Zoning Board of Adjustment, with them being too restrictive. That is why I sent it out to you. It's not proposed legislation, it's past legislation, and it's the long-term tracking of what has actually happened in these municipalities with these developments in place.
Other public comment? Come up.
Joe Falzoni, the developer. I've put property under agreement that I have now. And you had an example here at the last hearing where someone showed these long, narrow buildings confronted with wetlands on either side and a layout that would be expensive and hard to build. The site that I have under has 750 feet of frontage on Route 125. The commercial idea on the first floor on buildings that front 125, whatever percentage you decide is where they should be. Because these, if you measure a lot of these lots along 125, they're not real deep. But people don't want to go pick up something. I went to a doctor's office. I had to go through 3 buildings. I went inside. I didn't even know if I was in the right building where I was. Whereas if you pull into a place and you have a lot that has a lot of frontage, and you have retail or office on the first floor, and I've owned 3 shopping centers that I've sold when I was younger, that is where you can get higher rents to make it work and where it should be. It shouldn't be out back. And the percentage is going to be what you think the percentage should be, and you'll see how it works, because if they don't fill up, it's not going to work. And you talk about giving a bonus, it's going to be a stretch on most of these sites, as you said, because they all make up some wetlands. So you still got to meet lot size by soils. So and you can go on and you can read everything. I've gone on AI and have read all about your meetings, all about in other towns, and I've done retail on the first floor and housing on the second floor in Brentwood. I'm in Brentwood, in Barrington. The bonus isn't going to help a lot because it's going to be a struggle to meet the regulation to get the soils now to work for 6 and 2. You know, if there was municipal water, municipal sewer, we wouldn't have that problem. That's all I have to say about that.
Do you have any, just professional opinion, no specifics, but any thoughts on what I said about the possibility of if you have retail on the first floor, that the housing might be a little bit more affordable?
Well, I think you do more likely do 1 bedrooms above those units, so you could get units. But I think that it would work much better if you could get 3 stories on the commercial building. I'm not familiar with the fire code or the problem with that, but a little more height would help that work better. And I think, as Mike said, the formula for how you figure what you have to deduct for your gallonage is going to be what is the use of the tenant that's going in there. If it's office, it's going to be less. You put a restaurant in, you're going to be in trouble because the requirement of the gallonage is going to be so high. But I don't think anything that's going to be in back on a large site is the way to go for retail professional. It should be out front. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments?
Jim Hazard, 33 Mohawk Lane. I guess I hear several of you referring to the fact about we doing this, we doing that. Doug, you meant, I think the quote you said was that, like, we want to stay within the law. This concern with the law, this is state law. It's not, this is nothing that I've sent to any of you is Brentwood law. It's New Hampshire state law, 674:80, paragraph 3. A municipality may require all available ground floor space or a percentage thereof to be dedicated to retail or similar uses. So I don't know where this is the law. The state who is mandating that we do this gives the power to us to require is the word. My friend's a lawyer. So if we were to say 100%, like Windham, okay, Windham, this is what they're going to their voters with. They're saying that 1/3 of the units are single bedroom, 2/3, the remainder will be 2 bedrooms. On these multifamily in the commercial, not less than 50% of the units must qualify as workforce housing, as defined in the state law. Then, in their next one, they say, multifamily residential development structures shall dedicate the ground floor space for retail, offices, personal, 100%, okay? I looked, 50% is very reasonable, and they could make, You know, on the front, they could do 100, and maybe in the back, they don't have to do as much. I guess I'm really concerned about two things. One, I'm not a zoning person. I was on Community Development Board in Methuen many years ago. I wasn't on zoning. You people are the zoning board. How is it possible? Who put together this, our zone, like the draft that you people reviewed? Who put that together? Who did the research on the new law to put this thing together? And the reason why I'm asking, I knew nothing about this until last week when I went to your meeting on Thursday. I ended my little talk saying, look, I'm really shocked by this because I was thinking this was gonna be like mixed use, and this is not. This is just apartment buildings. Then I go home with my Friday coffee, I look up the law. It's only 4 paragraphs, 4. Now, 3 of the 4 paragraphs you have taken into account in your zoning proposal. Magically, the one that talks about retail space, no mention anywhere. And maybe I'm wrong, but I talked to several of you. You said you never heard of this before. I'm concerned, how is it possible that over my coffee on Friday, and I'm Mr. Budget and Mr. Cemetery, I don't know zoning, I figure, I see this thing. So, I mean, so that concerns me on one hand. The other thing is I feel like, I'll be honest with you, I've not come to your meetings before, but I don't know if this goes on all the time. I hear this like unbelievable concern for my good friend, the developer here. Now, I'm not a developer. I'm not, right? I'm just a resident. I'm the guy who fills out the survey with everybody else. And I don't think the people in this town are concerned about whether it's economically viable for him to put in multifamily housing in our commercial zone where, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we didn't have any multifamily in our commercial until now, right? We didn't allow it. We're doing this because the state put a gun to our head and said, you have to do it. And all I'm saying is like, and then I hear, whoa, we don't have time. Now we can't make any changes. This was how this meeting started. You didn't have time to make any changes. Where does this all come from? Like, how is this possible? Again, I just am really concerned that the residents, if you look at those surveys, in my opinion, they don't want big multifamily units in Brentwood. It doesn't fit our character. And I find it very interesting that Wyndham has taken advantage of this and trying to push the mixed use, which I support totally. And yet I hear this board saying that they're concerned about his economic viability or his ability to, well, I don't think he'd be able, then he won't put any housing on that floor, so he won't do any housing on that floor. Well, guess what? Then you've just made every person in this town really happy. And I did the research. 50%, I believe, is very reasonable and would stand up in a court if somebody tried to sue us, saying that, because it's not really up to us to satisfy his economic viability. I just don't see that. I mean, so I don't know. I just know I shared this, as soon as I saw this, I shared this with all of you. I don't know why it had never come to your attention before. Maybe one of you can explain that to me, because if you used a consultant, I'd like to you should get your money back. Because like I said, I'm not a zoning guy. I'm a budget guy. But like, this is so obvious. Like, anybody who can read the law would see that we have this authority granted to us by the state where we could tailor our important commercial zone to include multifamily, but still keep it a commercial zone and keep it viable. And I think it would be great if we had a restaurant on the first floor and apartments on the second, or lawyers' offices, or little doctor's office, or something like that. Anyways, I think I've said enough. I'm really if you guys can't change this, I'm like I said, then it's going to be, we have to vote no. We'll have to just vote no to your zoning proposal, and then you'll have to figure it out for the next time. And, you know, we'll reach July, and we won't be in compliance, and if somebody tries to sue, good, they can get in line, because there's going to be a zillion, 100 other towns that ain't going to have this figured out either, and he'll be in line with other developers suing other towns, and we'll say, well, we're working on it. So I'd rather have you wait and get this right, because it's important, than rush something through. And for the last time, I'm going to just say it, I've only gone to 2 of your meetings. I'm really concerned with the concern you have over my good friend, the developer here, and it seems like the lack of concern for, you saw the surveys. I've said enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. So I'll give everybody an opportunity to respond, but I'll respond to a few things. First, in terms of Wyndham, I don't know what their overall ordinance looks like, or their population, what housing they have already. There's the multifamily and commercial law that we're trying to comply with, but there's also the workforce housing law. And the workforce housing law mandates that we provide reasonable opportunities for workforce housing, including multifamily rentals, which we don't have another multifamily zone, that works in the community. So we're trying to address a lot of things at the same time. As far as rushing, we have been working on this for a long time. We did have a housing forum. We've had fact sheets with drawings and proposals and everything out there for quite a while. And I understand this is what happens when you finally get like really detailed stuff. That's when people come and pay attention and have input. But we've been trying to come up with something that balances the state law and a lot of needs. And I know that there's a prevailing, people don't want development. But again, we also hear people want other housing options. So we're trying to address that too. As far as the comment about, who are we working for? We work for the taxpayer, we work for the residents. No offense, personally, I don't care what works for you or not. The reason we've had a couple professional developers come in to work sessions is because we're trying to understand, when the state law says you have to do something and it's not very specific, we're trying to understand, what does that actually mean? What does that actually look like? And so that's why, we ask for a hypothetical example, things like that, because we're trying to understand. We've had all along mixed uses allowed. I think what's new that we hadn't had a long discussion that we're having now is, should we mandate that? And it's just not something that, we had talked about before. But I don't want to disparage anybody on this board that hasn't been doing a lot of work and trying to really understand this. And we have had this draft for quite a while. And as far as not being able to change things, we have deadlines. I'm concerned if we don't have something that works, if it's voted down on July 1st, we're vulnerable. So if you saw that hypothetical example the other day, I think just without a local ordinance, just going by state guidelines and septic and all of that, the land would have supported like 30 or 40% more than what so we're trying. I think you've heard a couple of people say, like, we feel like we're going as low as we can go. I do like the idea of having some, incentive or requirement for mixed use for commercial, but I think 100% is not realistic for us, or even 50%.
And
Yeah, which, the multifamily?
No, the requirement for where we could require
It's in
I've
there.
provided you with LegiScan. At the top of the page, it says LegiScan. That is the actual wording of the law.
It just says we may require,
It's one of the things that we sort of, because of the density that we went with, which is a very low density, that something wasn't really in our wheelhouse. And being aware of the height requirement and what goes above it, 100% is just unrealistic. It really is. What I think I would look at that as you're being so restrictive that you're trying to prevent these from going in at 100%. That's just, to me, it's undeniable.
Yeah, and I think that's
If you
something,
could come up with a middle ground of like 10%, I mean, I could see that front building having retail underneath it and then apartments above it.
I don't think we have enough information this year to change that 35-foot. But that ordinance has been on the books for probably 35 years.
Yeah.
At least that, and what we've learned now through developments like Three Ponds, actually Windsor Meadows, and also River Run, is all modern housing now in a more dense situation like that, cluster situations. They're all sprinkled residentially. So there's
That-
less concern for, fire-related safety issues than there were before.
I would
But that's
have-
something we ought to work with the fire department to
Right.
discuss what makes practical sense for
Mhm.
Brentwood.
I just want to point out too, I think the 35-foot restriction is also a visual thing that, people, again, want to keep the character. They don't want to see 5-story buildings or whatever.
And if I could just say a couple things, just going off of what you said, Chris, and I want to make clear that voting down this ordinance isn't going to have the effect that I think some folks are thinking that it might have. If we vote this down, state law still applies on July 1st, and on the state law allows more density than what we're proposing, which ties into my second point, and that's that everybody around this table throughout this process has been working to craft an ordinance that not only complies with state law, but works for Brentwood. Those are our two goals. We want to comply with the law, but do so in a way that works for Brentwood, that respects the rural character of the town that people in Brentwood all care about. And that has been our goal from the beginning. And I think that disagreement and passionate disagreement is a good and positive thing. But what I won't be silent and stand by and take is impugning the motives of the people sitting around this table who have been working tirelessly to craft ordinances that work for our town and fit what the people of Brentwood want. And so we can disagree without impugning the motives of one another.
But I agree with you, and we're all lay people, and we certainly relied on our consultant, and I don't want in any way to throw the consultant under the bus because they provided great, Kristen, Glenn, Mark, always put a lot of work and effort into formulating these ordinances. But that is something that, looking back, and hindsight's always 20/20, I had wished the consultant maybe had made us aware of that possibility of mixing some commercial with the residential.
I think he was just done when the density dropped so low.
But
Yeah.
We all knew there was the possibility. I think we didn't talk about mandating it.
That's the issue right here, folks. The definition we're proposing to adopt says mixed use and adaptive reuse. At no time did we ever say we didn't think that can be encouraged or we didn't think that was a good idea. At no time. And from the very beginning with the consultant, they talked about the benefits of having mixed-use development. And that's been part of our proposal from the get-go. The requirement of saying that you have to do it is what we haven't considered before.
Correct.
And I will still hold to what I said earlier. We didn't come up with a density for this development for developers. We actually came up with the lowest one we think complies with the requirements of the new law and works for the town of Brentwood. And to hear the kind of the tone that was just suggested is pretty offensive. Now, the discussion of whether or not we should mandate it, we haven't had that discussion.
No.
But I will tell you that my discussions with other planners have made it clear to me that the reason that was put into the state law was simply because there are many communities in New Hampshire that would not be constrained at all by simply saying the first floor of a multifamily development can be retail. Because they're communities that, first off, perhaps have historically always done that anyway. And secondly, are not cutting into the actual density allowance that we're providing, because we're starting at such a low point.
Well, we are, but I think, you know, and I'll just speak personally, I think my laser focus, or my focus has been more on the multifamily aspect of this change, and that's, you know, that's normal, I think, because we've heard about this new state law coming in. But I don't think in any way, and I'm certainly not an attorney, let Paul speak to this, but as I've said to members before, I don't think we have to worry about it, the state coming in or the Superior Court judge on July 1st stamping any plan and taking those choices away from the town of Brentwood. This is going to go through, is going to be affected by every county in the state is going to have these challenges come up. And I do not think that any one Superior Court judge sitting here over here on 125 is going to make some ruling that is totally not not agreed to by a majority of the justices. I think it's going to take several years and a number of challenges to work through.
I guess, Bruce, my thinking is, why give up the local control that we have left,
That we still have, yeah.
that the state hasn't taken away, and craft an ordinance and not leave it to chance?
Well, I think you're absolutely correct, but I think if we're really honest about the community surveys that were done, people have concerns about the need for housing, and I'm personally, as I said, I know my child could not afford to buy a house in Brentwood. I think we're all of that concern. We need some housing options, but the people who responded, I think probably on a 2-to-1 basis, people were more concerned with the business development in Brentwood versus the need for multifamily. I mean, that they're probably not right according to the law, the ramifications of the law, but I think to say that the townspeople, and we'll find out is through their vote, but I think they're more concerned, have a greater concern for maintaining the viability of our commercial district than they do for housing. So, maybe up to something like 50% is very rational. And again, that can be changed another year too. Let's not go from one end of the pendulum to the other. Let's kind of start in the middle, see how things progress, see what kind of developments that we see being applied for, and then we can make some changes another year.
You went from 15% to 50%, Bruce, so I'm a bit confused.
I mean, every board member, that's just mine. but
Well,
every board member.
I started at 50%, and I tend to agree. I mean, I think you're right. You put those visible businesses out front that people gravitate to for the retail piece of it. I go to many places where I have to venture through to get back into the back lots for my financial advisor, for instance. And I have no problem with that. Not me. I know, not him. But I see no problem with that. And I think that really, if Brentwood is the great place that all the surveys in the state say, people are going to want to come here to put their business here.
I just want to, before I forget, mention one thing that I talked about on Tuesday night with the select board, and that we did write a housing master plan chapter. And I know a lot of focus on what the state's done and complying with the law and all that, but our goals actually, if you look, are very consistent with what, it's just that the state's forcing us to do those things. But we said we wanted to fix our multifamily. We said we wanted mixed use. We said we wanted detached ADUs. So again, we've been trying to be consistent with what residents have asked for. Paul and then Doug.
Yeah, and reading the law, now that I open the computer and have it in front of me, it's interesting because it's all it's incorporated essentially. Section 1 of the new law requires that there be, and it says shall allow multifamily residential development on commercial land, provided that there's adequate infrastructure, roads, etc. But then in section 3, it says that the municipality may require all available ground floor space or a percentage thereof to be dedicated to retail or similar use. So it seems as though the statute, which is section 80 of RSA 674, which is the new statute effective July 1, 2026, it really speaks to both in terms of a mandate. And it gives us that option. So,
Yeah.
it brings me back to what you were saying earlier, Kristen, about, there does seem to be some sense for making some percentage of, that, and I don't know how you craft that.
Yeah.
Because I know when we were talking originally, it was, with this sole purpose of, bringing forward multifamily, but
I don't-
as
yeah,
I'm
I
reading
don't-
the law, it's more than that.
Yeah, no,
both.
and I don't think it was sole purpose. We have mixed use in here. Our discussion last year about multifamily mixed use kind of started because somebody brought a proposal in that didn't work with our ordinances, but we all kind of agreed, like, that would be nice. It would answer to some of the commercial, it would provide some apartments. So we were trying to figure out how to do that. I think Glenn's points are, when we got to our numbers for multifamily, we've kind of, we've taken a low number. And part of the reason that law is crafted that way is for the bigger towns that, can build up higher. And this law works in concert with other laws, like the workforce housing law that requires multifamily.
I mean, I agree, it's very hard to, we're talking apples and oranges, or, different comparisons when you're talking other towns. But, it does give us that, as a.
Yeah, no.
And like, if you're looking at, more than one building, because we're probably talking about developments that will have a few buildings at least. It seems to make sense that at least one of those that, is facing 125 have a designated percentage.
Yeah. Doug?
I'd just like to reflect on a couple of different things. Sometime back, we had a business meeting, and Chris Pappas had gone to that business meeting. And I appreciate your passion. I understand both of yours. I understand where you're coming from. But he was very adamant, Chris Pappas was very adamant over the fact that change is coming, and it's coming here. And if you don't control what you want to have happen, you're not going to be in control. And you can take a look around at some towns, and they have some control, but it's out of control. This board has been trying relentlessly to make sure that it fits for all the residents. The mistake we have, even though you would suggest it should be voted down, is that we will not be in a position of changing much of anything if the state tells us to do something.
Steph?
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on a few things. I know it's been mentioned a few times that there's an impression that we're working for the developer. I know Kristen addressed this, but wanted to chime in on that as well. I think there might be a misunderstanding in some of the discussions we've had. Our concern about the viability for the developer is not motivated by us worrying about his bottom line. I mean, developers have a right to earn a living and make a profit like anyone else, but our concern is if we don't have ordinances that are actually feasible and no development will come at all, which I know some people would prefer that, but that opens the town up to lawsuits, and that would ultimately cost people more. So we're trying to walk the line of put out ordinances that are technically feasible, and some of the developers that have come here and worked with us on their own time, it's mutually beneficial. It helps us craft ordinances that make sense and will work, and it helps them, have towns that have ordinances where they can work in. I see that as us working for the town so that we can prevent lawsuits and have the kind of development we want. Yeah, that's that. And then on another topic is in terms of the commercial, mandating a certain percentage, I would suggest for the board's consideration, what if we propose a modest percentage, somewhere in the ballpark, 10 to 25% for now, and then in the future, when we have more time, discuss with the fire department the possibility of going higher, and then at that point, if we can, open up the discussion to 100%. But I think a lot of us are in agreement, as much as everyone would love to see 100%. I think the building sizes that we are allowing and the density, it's not practical, as well as our infrastructure wouldn't support that type of intensive use. We don't have water and sewer. Wyndham, they have a population of what, like 15, 20,000 people and public water and sewer. It's a much different picture than what's going on in Brentwood. So yeah, it's my 2 cents on those topics.
I mean, I'm of the mind, I still like the 50% figure, and I think that what was mentioned before, you start it maybe high. If nothing happens in a year, no development comes because of it, and that's been stated to us that that's the case, then maybe we take a second look at it, you know? But to start low, I would rather start at 50 myself.
Yeah, and with regard to lawsuits, I'm not, where you have a state statute that gives us the ability to require dedicated use to the ground floor. I mean,
We also have a state statute that says expressly, the workforce housing statute expressly says, you cannot write ordinances that like purposefully don't allow for
that's separate.
housing development.
But
It's
that's-
not separate,
no,
though.
it's
It's
not.
these, all
Workforce
these,
is separate.
but all
It's
these things
separate
work.
from this statute. The statute is specific.
I understand, but
to-
these things all work together, and when
But
we,
we're going to talk about a separate workforce, ordinance, right? That-
are we going to allow multifamily in the rest of our residential area? Because workforce housing requires opportunities for
but I
multifamily.
thought we were talking about a separate ordinance that
They are
would bring back.
They are separate but together. Most communities put workforce housing and multifamily in the same sentence together, in the same zones together.
They
So,
both,
but
they
a
both
judge,
apply.
a judge is gonna look at it as, are you being reasonable or are you not being reasonable?
I think if
Do you feel that's reasonable to limit apartments, to eliminate 50% of a development being dedicated to single-floor apartments? Do you find that reasonable?
Again, I'm focused on this particular statute, which deals with multifamily residential. And I don't think you can look at that and bring in workforce, because that's a separate,
But the
ordinance that we're
workforce
talking
law
about.
requires us to provide reasonable opportunities for multifamily, and the only place we're allowing multifamily is in the commercial zone. So you can't really separate the two. And I just want to say one other thing, because there's been a number of comments about what we're doing and allowing and what people want. Keep in mind, and I had this, we had the map up the other day. I don't know what percentage is, 95% of our community is still going to be single-family residential agricultural, and something like 25 or 30% is conservation land. So we're only talking about 125 and 27, and yeah. Rob, did you have something else?
I'll try and make it brief because I know this has gone on a long time. First of all, again, I'm going to start by saying I thank you all for all the work you've done, the grants, and I'm 100% in favor of having an ordinance and not going without one. So if I stated that earlier incorrectly, I was just trying to suggest modifications for this one. And this is my first planning board meeting in 5 years, so I have no idea what all you guys have discussed in the past. I just happened to be at the select board meeting and heard Kristen's very good presentation. So not realizing before this that you had gone to the minimum number of units, and I realize we're in the bottom of the ninth already and you need to get this done. I'll assume that you're right and say the multifamily doesn't cost other taxpayers money, it breaks even or whatnot. Commercial, I think we all agree, is a benefit to the town. So having 100% commercial would be ideal. Why not consider more units? I mean, if we want more affordable multifamily, why not have 8 units and 100% or 10 units per acre or whatever the right term is?
You weren't here at the
Yeah,
last planning board
that-
meeting?
What?
You weren't here at the last.
Discuss that.
That goes
Um,
hand in hand with elevation.
But why
You
can't it
need
spread
that,
out more?
well, we'd have, because we'd have to lower the density calculation of lot size. Like, you can only cover 25% of a lot.
Well, okay, so whatever.
We've
I
done
don't
that
know
to
what
keep
all
some
the-
character to it, to keep some open space to these developments and not jam the whole land with buildings.
I guess, but I mean, I've seen plenty of commercial on 125 that's not so attractive. So if that's gonna be our 125 like through Plasto, let's just do that.
I don't
You know,
disagree on the,
Keep our tax base robust, right? So I would personally exchange 100% on commercial for a little more density and possibly a less open space. We have a lot of open space in town. 125 is not someplace I'm going to, sit in the forest and calm my
No.
mind.
Right.
So thank you. I was just saying, maybe there's other options. I know it's late
Yeah.
in the game today, but.
sorry.
So
So one,
oh, sorry.
so one question that I mentioned early in the conversation, maybe we need to look at these two things together, is if you go back to our draft ordinance, the really big section in yellow, at the end of that section, it says, no building or group of buildings or other construction activity that results in impervious surfaces in a multifamily development shall cover more than 25% of the developable land. So we had talked about changing that to 40%, and I think that's kind of in line with what Rob is saying. If we change that to 40%, it allows for more of the land to be used, maybe would result in more multifamily units. And, we're trying to find this balance here, maybe requiring some commercial, but loosening up this land restriction a little bit.
I would support that.
Yeah,
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 that's reasonable.
yeah.
All right, that was easy.
So we go from 25 to 40?
Yes. Okay.
Now, do we still keep it at 6 and 2, or do we go higher on the density?
Based on all of our conversations to date, I feel like that's where we landed.
I mean, I'd like the 6 too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think the good thing actually about if we keep it 6.2 but expand the footprint a bit, it could create more opportunities for young families that want to call Brentwood home and are looking for a starter, kind of a starter type situation, rather than just having all 1 bedrooms where it's really not conducive for families. Yeah, right.
If you pull out the plan sets that I had put in front of you, that's some of the plan sets that were done as a concept plan, they have a bedroom count on there. Mr. Morrill did speak about how that lot itself was constrained, and that's the amount of buildings he could put on it, but he's nowhere near the bedroom count. So consider what you're doing right now is if you thought,
we used the 25%, though.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you make it 40, that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
That lot is gonna become more dense. So if the people who stood up and complained about that plan is so much density on it, you're gonna increase that density.
But what we're saying is,
I just
we
want you to
would-
be aware of that.
They have to sell the units. The units have to be attractive for people to purchase.
Well, of course.
I think that's somewhat going to negate the concern you have about the density.
Now, I'm not concerned. I'm just want you to be aware of what you're doing.
yeah, I think the trade-off
That's
that
all.
we're talking about, though, is allowing some more density, although keeping the same, number per acre. Because some of it will be, we still haven't figured this out yet, but some of it would be commercial, so.
Now you're just gonna smash out a percentage.
Yeah, so if we're gonna move it the coverage from 25 to 40, what's kind of the temperature in terms of a percentage that? I mean, I kind of like 25, but I'm, you know, would want to hear from the, you know, the group.
I'm leaning at, sorry, I'm leaning towards that because we want, it makes sense to have that along 125 and have the housing behind. And just, you know, the way people have argued that we can go down, we can go up, you know,
Sure.
that could change in the future, but 50% seems unbalanced to me.
I think 25 is the perfect number because those above are going to be apartments. You're only going to get single floor living out of that 25%. So what we're saying is out of a multifamily development, 25% of it not only will be commercial, but will also be apartments, single floor apartments.
I just have a question.
Sure.
When everyone's saying 25 or 50%, are they saying each building or?
Total first family,
And
or
it's-
first floor square footage.
In its totality.
I'll say this example, all 3 buildings would have to have that. I would be in favor of the one on the frontage of 125, 100%, and not saying anything for all the other ones,
No,
but
but-
100% if it's on 125 for commercial.
The ordinance would be worded that the totality of the building footage, meaning you could put all the square footage on the first building right here, all commercial.
But I would say that as
Of the project, so the
Of the
percentage of the
project.
project.
Yeah.
Let the developer, let economics drive where.
Where he puts it.
And the buildings might be configured differently too, so we don't know how that.
And then
Yeah,
in the back
this
would
is-
be more like a neighborhood in
Yeah.
that concept,
This is
but
more
just
of a hypothetical.
how can we focus it on the 125, which I think mends the relationship for people who don't want anything but would support a commercial, and then that is sort of a cooperation of, and then there's a separation, I don't know, just, can we make it so?
I think the market will adjust. I don't think a developer's going to do something where it's not viable for business. And they will put it where they feel it gets the most frontage or display. I think the free market will solve that pretty quickly.
Because the price, the units will be more valuable if they're more livable. You wouldn't want apartment and a store beside it, or condo beside it. You'd want to have some space between the two, so it's kind of like, use the word livable.
Yeah. And they'll have,
More value.
they will more than likely be apartments above, because it's going to be single floor. 35 feet, you're going to be limited to single floor living, which will probably be
Chris,
one
you
bedroom.
mentioned many times, having some single bedroom.
That'd be a good thing.
It's good.
There's nothing wrong with that. No, it's a diversity in housing stock. Yeah.
Any comments from the board right now before we take more public comments?
Well, just in devil's in the details, so how would that be stated?
25% of the first floor square footage of the development must be reserved for retail or commercial uses such as retail.
But not limited to.
But not limited to. That are, I think we should have a sentence that are compatible with residences.
Are we set on 25%?
I don't think that answers, that question's been answered.
No.
I think,
But I think you should, I think the language should make clear that if you do put a limit of 25, what you're saying is that is the minimum limit.
amen.
And that
Yeah.
you could do 100%
Yeah.
Yeah.
of the first floor if you chose to.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good point.
Do with 50% requirement and let them they could put all the retail in one building.
Yeah, I mean, that absolutely can be part of the definition.
Because the verbiage would say 50% of the project approved. units
First
in the-
floor square footage in the
Okay.
project.
The legislation does say first floor. Does
First
it?
floor.
Yeah.
So
Minimum.
Totality of the square footage.
Correct.
first.
I personally feel like 25% makes more sense. However, given what we've talked about, how we have the opportunity to change it and people are so passionate about having a higher percentage, I would personally vote to go with 50 and then see how it goes.
I haven't expressed any passion, but I was really leaning towards 25%. I guess I'm picturing, you're going to have maybe 4 buildings and one of them has retail. That's, I guess, where,
Well, I like the idea of stating minimum of 25.
can do more.
And with the option of doing more. I mean,
The minimum, I just feel like that's where they're gonna go.
I think that's what taxpayers are going.
Yeah.
Do you want 50% of this development to be apartments?
Well, we're just saying 50% of the ground floor.
Ground floor.
Yeah.
But
Right. You're limited to 35 feet. That's my point. You're not going any higher than basically 2 stories of really an attic area. So I want you to be aware of what you're doing. Do you want 50% of the development to be apartments?
75%.
Right.
Only 50% of
Correct.
Right.
75%.
Of the total.
Right. So it'd be, so if an 8-unit building would be 6 units residential, and 2 of those units would be dedicated to commercial, first floor. Right?
Well, it could be
You can parse this out in many different ways.
half the floor.
But above that commercial area, you are limited to 1 floor. So that limits, I suppose you could have a home with 1 floor, but that's typically not the square footage area that you would use for a condominium. You would make those apartments.
Sounds like the right price, though, for a workforce housing, if it's a smaller unit.
Perhaps, but we're talking $1,900 including utilities. That's the marker we have to set there for workforce. I just want you to picture in your mind's eye what you're approving here and what you're going to see.
Like I said, if it doesn't work the first year and we've made it
Mhm.
too restrictive, you can always go back and revisit it.
Right.
I do want to point out though, we started out with 0%. You're coming in with 50. 25 is literally the dead center compromise position.
Well, and I think a lot of us admitted that we were totally unaware of that opportunity to require some commercial space.
No,
Certainly, I've been here to every meeting, I believe, since last March. I don't ever recall discussion taking place that centered around this. Commercial.
I think we've always kind of just thought that like we had that proposal, that if that's what somebody
We thought that's what we
wanted to build, that would happen, and that we're frustrated with the state mandating things, and maybe we weren't going to mandate as many things,
You know, I
but.
say again, I don't think they have to worry about any pressure from court coming down on Brentwood in the next year and forcing our hand and signing off on the development. None of us would want to see.
But-
I wouldn't bank on that.
Let's.
Okay, well, I'm glad we have our budget committee member here to plan accordingly for the lawyer's fees
All right,
that he'll have to budget for.
I'm going to pause for a second. Has everybody had a chance to speak up at this point? Okay, Jim.
Yeah, Madam Chair. First of all, I just want to say, like, I had shared this with you personally and some of you, the frustration of being put in the situation by the state that you guys were elected to do, and you do what's best for the town, and now you're dealing with this. I sense and I appreciate all you're doing under these conditions. You started talking, you kind of mentioned it already, but I think when Mr. Kleiman read the law, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right? I'm not a lawyer, but I play one sometimes, and he warns me about this. But so when you're talking about, oh, Wyndham has this or that, and they have a height, the state law doesn't say anything about if your municipality has more than this many people, or if your municipality allows these many heights. The law says we can do 100. It says may require all available. That's really clear legal language. We could say 100%, and we would be legal. So, and Mr. Finnan, again, I'm all with you. I had promised Mr. Stevens here that we had at the breakfast said, I'll be there. I'll make sure people know to vote yes on this thing. But I did not realize, I was assuming that what you were proposing was the best you were gonna do for this town. And I feel like missing this number 3 really is bad. And if you, and when I said I would tell people to vote no, it's if you ignore this and you don't put anything in there about this, I think you're really not doing the right thing for the town. But I'm hearing discussions now about a percentage. I'm really happy about that you are willing to look at this and maybe put this in here. But I'll go back to the law, the state law. So you want to sue me? I'm not worried from a budget standpoint. The state law says we can say 100%. And I looked into this a lot. I really spent time on it. 50%, it even said on the AI, this is very reasonable. And all around the country and other places, 50% is reasonable. So I think if somebody comes in and tries to sue us, the law says we could have said 100%. We're only saying 50. And some of you now have picked up on this. Like, yeah, 50% means the front building could be 100%. The back building doesn't need any, and you hit the 50. So, I think my other friend Rob, like he was saying 100 at first. I think he's coming around, like maybe it wouldn't be so bad. I think 50 is really reasonable. I don't know why you are concerned about using 50. I think 50, it works. It gives them an opportunity to do a mixed use in Brentwood on 125 that I think might actually come out with maybe something would be really nice, But at the same time, the residents get hey, we're at least being protected from something just going in, boom, all apartment buildings. So again, I just want to say, and our town planner, Mr. Greenwood, if I offended you in any way, I am very sorry. Look, you're really good at what you do, and I appreciate what you do. Just this week, you helped me out immensely on the cemetery thing. So, sir, if I offended you, I am very sorry. I did not mean to do that. I think Mr. Finnan is correct. My passions get to me sometimes, and even with my prayers beforehand, I guess I didn't say enough of them this time. So I'm sorry if I offended any of you. I respect all of you immensely, and I appreciate everything you do for the town. I just hope that tonight we can do something with this paragraph 3 and make something that we can all get together, and then we all have a job to do of making sure they vote yes, because that's going to take some work. But I'll be here to help you with that. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim.
So,
Do I hear a third? Come on.
oh,
Hi, Bill Dunham from Block Drive. I want to apologize to everybody in advance if I'm going to offend you. I was doing just fine back there until I heard the name Pappas. And
Sorry, he was there.
that's okay, it's your fault. But that's okay, we can still be friends.
Okay.
Anyhow, this is the point of the conversation when I've been listening to everybody, and everybody has had a great argument, no doubt about it. But the fact is that this is the point in time when common sense really supersedes law. And common sense tells me that the population of New Hampshire peaked in the year 2024, and it hasn't really grown that much in 2025. And we have housing units being built all over the state. And as to whether or not there is any kind of industry that is going to be put into the town of Brentwood, seems to me you can do what I've been doing for 50 years, get in your car, leave your apartment in Portsmouth, and drive to Brentwood so that you can work. Anyhow, I'm not even sure that any of this is really necessary, any of it whatsoever. Why are we doing this? Apparently because people like Chris Pappas over there believe that this is something that needs to be done, and that every town in the United States of America needs to be a cookie cutter representation of every other town in America. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill.
One note on that, the state housing laws that were passed last year were bipartisan and signed by the governor, so.
Actually, Chris Pappas didn't want to vote.
Yeah,
That's right.
He
He just gave a point of view of growth.
Yeah, no, I do want to clarify.
think-
He hasn't been in the state legislature since the 90s,
No.
I don't
I,
think.
I think the other thing on population is patterns have changed, so that you have fewer people per unit, and I think that's why we're seeing more housing units, even if population isn't
So,
really changing.
People are aging in place and their children are leaving. We're not retaining young people anymore, and
So-
that's the problem.
So here's what I will do as a gesture of, compromise, and because I like 25%, but if I am outnumbered, I will not stand in the way of a unanimous vote for 50. If I'm outnumbered, I'm not sure that I am.
Do we hear 30, 1/3, 40%? I'd like to be under 50, maybe.
Why, Krista? Why?
50 to me could change the whole dynamic of the development.
Because
And it,
you talk, well, go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I think the 25, a quarter or a third gives you some commercial development and leaves some two-story living space. If you go up to 50%, I think, you're going to have 50% one-story apartments, and that just
Well, on the other hand.
seems out of balance. And it's also, we're mandating that, right? So we are tying their hands. We can say 30% or whatever, and they could do 100 if they want to. But we're mandating that, which,
Don't you think that some professional offices might be located on the second floor? I mean, I think some people still just rent the units, right? There's still
Yep.
units,
Yeah.
walk up the stairs. And overall, we've got to sell this to a very concerned populace here in town.
Yep. So if you do a third, 35%, and you start there, it may be a good balance all the way around.
I think you hit the sweet spot at 25. Now, I've been listening to Mr. Greenwood for a very, very long time, and he's never steered us wrong, and he's told you a story of caution. And I'm hoping that you heard that story. He's a very reserved man. He told you his opinion, and he's not going to give it again.
He must
So,
have some of that candy.
I want you to listen to those words of caution and come up with a reasonable number that not only works in this situation, but also works for the density calculation.
Glenn, I would like to ask you just one more time, thinking about the project as a whole. What would be your argument that, considering the project as a whole, where you place your commercial units versus your residential, why you'd be advocating for something less than, say, 50%? If we allow the developer to group his commercial use whatever way he wanted to do it, he's obviously going to maximize profits, so he's going to look for the most livable, the most saleable housing.
As I said earlier, my sole concern is ensuring that the ordinance that we pass is an ordinance that actually results in something. Because we've had a multifamily ordinance that never resulted in one unit of multifamily. And I think that because we pared back on the density to ensure, or to our goal was to make residents understand that we were not trying to out-density the character of Brentwood, that because we've done that, to then mandate, to tie a developer's hands to also removing 50% of at least one floor from being able to be those units that we're trying to develop, may chase people away. Yeah, Bruce, none of us are experts at this. What we are experts at is that we looked at what the average density was for multifamily. And that density number started at 12 and went up above 25.
Statewide,
Yeah. And we felt that those numbers were way too high to be palatable for the town of Brentwood. And now what we're doing is saying beyond telling you that the multifamily density allowance is really low, we're also then gonna further tell you how your development is going to incorporate commercial activity on the first floor. And that, to me, in an era where all I've heard my entire career is that I restrict people in everything I do, there's been a dramatic change in the last 3 years of people that used to tell me how bad I was for restricting people. Now they're telling me how bad I am for not restricting people. All I want is to ensure that what we've done is create an ordinance that actually will result in multifamily units. Because we have, although we made efforts to do that, we haven't tried in 25 years to fix that ordinance we had that wasn't doing anything. And now we have been goosed by the state to say, you do have to do something about it.
I think your argument's very, very valid. Of course, the other half of that equation is what will townspeople interpret that to be and what will they accept?
It's absolutely true.
If they don't accept, we go too far the first time, and again, I think we've all talked that these ordinances are fluid. That's the word that you taught us 30 some odd years ago when you came here, 40 plus years ago. We can change them and adapt. We'll also see what kind of case law is developed over the next year in terms of what that state law, we don't really know. Nobody
And
knows what that's
it's not really a year. I mean, this law takes effect in July. I don't think we're gonna see a wave of lawsuits. Because in New Hampshire, it usually ends up being one lawsuit in one unfortunate community, like Atkinson, and then we heard about Atkinson for 40 years. That's what legitimately happens. I really don't want it to be Brentwood.
And I doubt it will be. We don't have.
And I don't think it will be either.
We don't have a land mass to support that.
But I think that we have already said what we desire are low-density multifamily developments. That's what we have said with this proposal, is that we are not trying to make Brentwood an urban community. And every time you look at what the state has done with their zoning initiatives, they have always forced upon the locals whatever they think is the best one play suits all. And it never really does. And they've gone way out of their wheelhouse after 70 years of saying zoning is local to say that zoning is now a state issue. And that's really concerning. But what we can do is craft laws that fit our town. And I think that's what we've done.
And what about the percentage, Glenn? What do you think we should land at?
Honestly, 10 is way too low.
Okay.
25 to 50, I don't see a big difference there.
Okay.
I don't see a big difference.
Keep in mind too that we're also talking about 27. I know we've been focused on 125 where,
Would
We're
people, I
picturing-
don't know if this is doable or not, but I know we were talking about 8 units, right? 6 and 2. I mean, if we up that to 10, would people then feel more comfortable at 50%?
I don't think we have the public support to
No,
go
Okay.
higher on that.
we had a long discussion about that too, didn't we?
Right, but that's because, I don't think anyone
Pitchforks
was
were
talk-
mentioned.
I don't think anyone was talking about the 50% at that point.
True.
No, but it's difficult to parlay that at this point.
I know.
mean, that's what our meshing, this is so low a density and now you're gonna increase that density. I mean,
I think there'll cause a lot of confusion among townspeople.
I would leave the
Yeah.
density where it is and put your percentage in.
Bruce, we've got something.
Joe Delisle, Michael Bennett Road. I was wondering what percentage of the surveys came back as wanting multifamily, and I'm a little disappointed because I never got one. And as a resident, to me, if there is even a chance that commercial on 125 is gonna get my taxes lowered a little bit, that's what I want. And I would love to see 50% at least. because like they said, you can change it later. So I don't see the big deal in the beginning of making it 50%.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't know the percent offhand. And there's the combination of people wanting that and the law.
And Joe, as far as
mandating
the surveys go, we had the housing forum that we had advertised, the survey, we had surveys there. We also had it in the Brentwood newsletter. So we've had it in multiple places. Yeah.
We actually, I think, may have received more than one comment last time that said, please stop sending a survey.
But I mean, my final thing on this was is that as we discuss this, again, it accomplishes three things when you think about it. Bringing the business to Brentwood in the retail piece of it. You know, that means that it's smaller apartments on the second floor. I know my son pays $1,800 for a dump, a one-bedroom apartment. You make it nice, you know, of course they're gonna rent that. That takes care of our workforce, you know? And it also, like I said, will help with our tax base and help get this across the finish line.
You mean across the finish line? Big impediment.
Yeah.
So can we have a straw
Yep.
vote after everybody gets?
Doug had his hand up.
Well, that was actually my suggestion. I feel like we've really kind of expressed our opinions, and I'm very curious kind of where the board is. Yeah.
50.
Well, so do we want to do like I would defer to you in terms of.
Yeah, I was gonna put out one more compromise of 40. See if, see where folks are. But go ahead, Doug, where you are at. 25, 50, somewhere in
You're
between.
dying to go. Go.
I know, Brett, we know you're 50.
Based on what Glenn said, not a big difference between 25 and 50. I'd say 50.
50.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm also one who's open to compromise as well. So, I mean, if there was
Big compromise, Paul, we cut it.
we never started.
Well, no, we
Yeah,
started
that's
at
not-
0.
Right.
So,
So I mean,
yeah.
I'm open to what you're saying, but it really is probably marginal at this point.
Let's sell it, get it on the books. adapt.
Let's finish.
I'm at 25, but like I said, if I'm outnumbered, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna prevent the vote from being unanimous.
Nate,
50.
50.
I think we're in the.
I think we're in the minority.
We're in the minority, and I do always. Mark.
Oh, I just had a question for Mr. Greenwood. I mean, we really don't need a motion for that, do we? Because we're going to vote on that at a public hearing, correct?
Well, we want to figure out what it is so the language can be written.
Well, that's why I'm asking. Do you want that in a motion?
Yeah.
You want that in a motion?
I
Thank
think
you.
you should.
That's what I.
At least, if you don't have to do that now, but when we
Right.
determine.
We
the
can make
things
all
we're
the
going to-
changes and
Right,
then
that has to
vote.
absolutely be one of
Be-
those.
be- Because
things we
because
follow.
Okay, thank you.
because we're gonna do that, and then also the 40, the 25 for yeah.
Yeah.
Correct, and reverting back to the commercial zone standard.
Right.
Okay. I always try to get 100% consensus, but
I'm a man of my word. I was outnumbered, and I respect that.
so we're at 50. So we'll need. I have draft. I think I have some draft language that we can start with.
Okay.
And should I just email you?
That would be great.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Can we take a 5-minute break?
It got late quickly.
It did.
And one.
I don't know if it was quickly, but let's take a 5-minute break. We still do have to, I think we're mostly done with this. I think we've talked through most of it. I did want to talk, Glenn, about making sure that what we've drafted for workforce, that these two things work together and don't conflict with each other.
Do we want to take a break, or do we want to just kind of power through if we're getting close to?
My sugar is low.
I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Okay, so turn off your microphones. What do you?
I'm going to leave the stream live. Just
Okay.
turn your mic off.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Connor. Thank you. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Normally I wouldn't care, but I don't think I.
I missed how much fun this board is. I might just have to come back. I want to run for planning board so I can sit next to.
Microphone's back on, please. All right, so we don't have the workforce printed, do we? Can you put it on the screen? Oh, is it? I'm sorry.
Where are
Why do I not see it, Mark?
Because I was focusing on the two that we needed to go to public hearing for. I apologize. I didn't think that was going to be a topic. I
It's
thought-
okay. I
Because
just,
we have the public hearing coming up for that.
yeah, I just wanted to make sure
on the
because
22nd. I can put it up
the,
on the screen.
that would be great, thank you.
It really, the workshop.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that there's nothing that conflicts.
Right.
Because we've got setbacks and we've got calculations and,
Hey, one thing, just before we start the workforce, go back to the light industrial. I like the language that you crafted. We did say to the Prescotts who were here present at the last meeting, they had some input, and it sounded like they wanted to have some input in terms of the description, the definition of light industrial, but did you hear anything from them this week?
I sent that definition out to Mr. Baum,
Okay, well, that's
who
fine.
was their attorney.
As long as you send it to them, that's cool.
And I have not gotten a response from Mr. Baum.
I think what, Kristen is suggesting works fine. All it does, it says you can't, I'm gonna start an open pit mine.
Right.
Well,
Right.
rock
Everything
crushing.
in that covers what Russell does.
And he probably figured it.
Well, he described his proposal itself as light industrial,
Yeah, yeah.
so.
Case closed.
sorry. Do we want to, well, no, we want to wait and see if there's anything else we need to change.
While we're waiting for that, there's one thing I just want to bring the board's attention to. I don't think it would be appropriate to discuss it tonight because I didn't give anybody a heads up, but I want to give folks a heads up now because I plan to bring it up at our next meeting. I discussed with Representative Litchfield one of her bills that I would like to bring forward to the board next week to potentially endorse and write a letter to send to the committee considering the bill. It's House Bill 1249, that's 1249, and the bill would specify that the speed limit in the Brentwood section of 125 is 45 miles an hour.
Last year, or the year before,
Total number?
1249.
the state did change the law to add a category allowing, I think it's like rural highways or something. I forget how they described it, but basically it was written because of Brentwood,
Right.
allowing the 45 mile per hour to, for them to do that,
Yeah.
so,
Would
yeah.
that override the state DOT's professional engineers in terms of, they're the ones that normally set speed limit, so it would override and take them out of the equation?
Well, I think to Kristen's point, I think that
It was
yeah.
it was one of the commissioners from the DOT that worked on that bill.
Right.
That actually, the original bill. It just, I don't know why it hasn't been implemented. I know I had conversations, and I think the planning board wrote a letter to our former police chief.
Yes.
And I think that the whole thing kind of just got dropped.
Just for the community's edification, when we're down at the Kingston-Brentwood line, as we come up 125 from south and from the southern side into Brentwood, what is the speed limit in Kingston?
When you cross into Kingston,
Well, yes.
45?
right.
I bel
When you come out of that intersection where the
45.
plaza is with the big white fence, why can't I think of the name of it? That's all, Carriagetown, that's all 45 till the Brentwood line. Then it opens up till 55, drops to 45 for 111A, keep going down 55, and then it drops to 45 for the North Road intersection, goes up to 55 into Epping, and then drops down to 45 again through Epping.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think with, my personal opinion is with all the turns in and out, that it makes sense to
Yeah, and we don't have to discuss that tonight. I just wanted to bring it to the board's
Okay.
attention and give you the bill number so that we could talk about it maybe next meeting.
Sounds good, thank you. Okay, so, Glenn, I know you've
So
wrote
what
this.
so what we have in this would apply, this is the dicey section. Because this means that this applies in the rural residential zone. So.
And it has to by law, again, we have to,
It has to.
a majority of the.
Right, a majority of those zones, that allow residential use.
Could you just push up? Thank you, but sorry.
The density section here, because we're allowing that there are four bedrooms allowed per acre, per developable acre. And so that does not really equate to the density allowance that we're allowing multifamily workforce housing in the commercial zone. But they're two different zones.
Can we just specify this only applies to the residential?
To the
agricultural
residential
district, which is the
agricultural
vast
zone.
Majority of the, okay.
Under the
Mm,
3-002-009-003, workforce housing development shall be, permitted, in all zoning districts except for the commercial industrial area of Pine Road.
Yeah, so we really should clarify that the application of this ordinance is the residential agricultural district in town.
So let me explain what happens with what you're reading. When I put that public hearing notice online, there's about 50 question marks that pop onto the screen. When I take it and copy it and paste it onto, so I have to go back into it and take out, I'm not joking, 50 some odd question marks out of the document. Now, most of the time they come up as red because it's now spelled weird
It's like
with
a
a question mark.
formatting, yeah.
So I might have missed a couple in there and I apologize for that, but I don't know why it does that.
It's a formatting thing.
It's a formatting thing,
Yeah.
but a miscommunication between the Word document that I'm using and the Word document that they're using for whatever, for the website.
We pay $30,000 a year for software.
Yeah, you can imagine my frustration when I have to redo an entire document. Yeah, so I apologize.
They can give you more questions.
So if we specify at the top here somewhere, this applies to the residential zone,
The residential agricultural zone.
do we need to add anything to the multifamily? Because we don't define workforce housing, that's defined in state law, so I don't know if it really matters,
Right.
but do we need to grab anything from this and make sure it's in the other one? And do we
I don't believe so.
create any other problems by doing that?
Why don't we give a reduction of 20% on the impact fee, on the educational piece? I mean, more than likely, they're bringing in children, right?
But the
Well,
point
the
is
point
to,
is that since this is aimed at being affordable,
Yeah.
the planning board felt like giving them a reduction on the impact fee, which is just after all another tax, is a good thing to do. That's why it was
It
done.
makes sense. I think that part of it makes sense. But explain to me what the difference between this ordinance and the Autumn Lane, or the Autumn Road, because it's Autumn Lane development, which is, we call it workforce housing. I guess we called it affordable at that time.
No, we called it workforce.
Workforce.
It got developed under this
Okay,
ordinance.
so they'll get the advantage of 2 extra lots if if a percentage of them are workforce. I mean, we aren't gonna have a development that's all going to be workforce. That's not what this is saying, correct?
No,
40%.
it's, right, it's 40%, and this uses a different density calculation than what we're allowing in the commercial industrial zones.
Correct.
The commercial industrial zone density is much higher than this allows.
I don't think we're ever gonna have a complete development of workforce,
No.
only because of the building costs nowadays. They couldn't make it work.
I'm afraid we're gonna have very few. We need to have this on the books.
Yeah.
But whether or not any of them are built,
Yeah,
somewhat doubtful.
The thing is,
No.
that's why I question even the 40%, because it just doesn't seem, viable. And I could be completely wrong, and I realize that there were, projects built, but that was like 15 years ago. Now, if you're mandating 40%, it just seems like it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but.
Fiscally.
Yeah. Not accounting for the land use or the land cost, but it would be nice to see a developer like, in other towns where they're sort of socially minded and have, purposely build things that are small and more affordable, but
Probably the socially.
you can't you can't.
People are bankrupt.
You could always up the bedroom count. And the way I understand this, Mr. Greenwood, is that you're not limited to some building style. Just like cluster developments aren't limited to a building style. You could have limited common area, you could have individual lots. It all depends on the size and acreage of the parcel we're talking about,
Correct.
correct? Yeah.
Yep.
So that's why they're built with two different styles. One was probably with private property lines. The other one was built with limited common area, with condo docks. So,
Autumn Lane is a site plan approval. There's no interior lot lines there.
there's no interior, so they have limited common area as well. Okay. It probably works out better that way, but
Is it wise to have it on the first sentence there where it says featuring predominantly small single-family units? Would somebody be in conflict with that? Do we really need that? What's wrong with allowing them to have workforce housing put in any development? Not just one was predominantly small family homes? Is that limited?
Well, what we're talking about is clarifying that this only applies in the residential agricultural district.
Right, but we have a statement here that says workforce housing development, housing contained in a development featuring predominantly small, single-family units.
I think that's.
I don't even know what it
You don't
means.
really need to have small, is what you're saying. Because it's almost demeaning.
Yeah, I mean, small to this board today is one thing, small
Oh,
to 3
I see
years
what
from
you're
now.
Right, so just have it say contained in developments that include single-family units, apartments, and/or condominiums.
Exactly.
And not saying anything about what those units look like or size.
Apartments, condominiums, because we're not gonna allow it in those areas.
No, we allow condominiums in the residential agricultural zone.
under your workforce housing.
Yeah, and condominium in this, well, no, we actually allow up to 8 units under one roof. Where is that requirement?
But should we strike that since this is not for the multifamily zone?
Multi-unit housing.
Yeah. I mean, the 55 plus are condominiums technically, so they can be standalone.
Yeah, number 8.
Oh, yeah, the maximum number of attached units shall not exceed 8.
It's a little confusing because there's 3, the number 3, and then 8 is spelled out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like multifamily.
It does, we could just stop that at housing units shall have a maximum of 3 bedrooms. And I mean, that was a decision that we made also. I guess in an attempt to contain the size of the units.
Yeah, and make them more compatible with other uses, other single-family uses in the same development.
But we should delete that, everything beyond.
Well, everything beyond that is comply with the law, comply with the law, comply with our ordinance for minimum square feet.
Oh, I only meant.
10's a little
I
different.
meant leaving A to just housing and removing everything plus A and B, and then going forward with 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Okay, so 8 is just housing units shall have a maximum of 3 bedrooms, cross out 8A, cross out 8B.
Correct.
And leave the rest.
Because honestly, we require that anyway.
Right.
We have to comply with safety codes.
Exactly, exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying too. Building height, gross square feet, those are in other parts of our ordinance too. But. Okay. So where do we write that this applies to?
We're gonna, I think you want number 1, under 300-002-00903. If you're talking about where we say which district it's in.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be workforce housing developments, in accordance with this ordinance shall be permitted in the in the residential agricultural zone.
Wouldn't it be applicable in all zones? No?
No.
Okay.
I don't, no, because this is advocating for single family. We don't want to be
Okay.
promoting that in our commercial districts.
Fair.
We're
Thank
saying the only allowance we're really advocating for residential in those districts is the multifamily ordinance we're just proposing.
Thank you.
And I know I've asked this. So if we do that, do we need to do anything else to the other one? Do we need to add anything to the other one?
So does the 40% make sense?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm honestly not sure. I mean, it did work 15 years ago to the degree that it happened twice and then the townspeople got scared because they both happened in the southern part of town. And
Right, but now it's upside down. Or-
it is.
Yeah, so
It is.
I just see like 40% is almost a booby trap.
Percent is that
The workforce housing standard.
40% of 40% of the units. Well, you can,
Autumn Way doesn't have.
but 40% is the minimum.
No, no.
Maybe 3.
Yeah.
It was 3 or 4.
3 or 4. I drove in there today and take a look.
Yeah, it was 3 or 4. I
Maybe
think.
there's 4. I thought there was only 2 at first, but then there was a colonial, very small colonial, and I decided that was one of them.
So I understand this, where it says where 40% of the units meet the state requirements. Does that mean it has to be 40, or it could be some other number greater than 40 even under that?
That would say that it could be greater.
Right.
That's saying that.
So that's the low end.
Right, that's saying well, it doesn't say at least 40, but it says.
It doesn't say it.
It says 40%, so if you
Could say
went
that.
to 50, you wouldn't be out of compliance with the ordinance. If you went to 30, you'd be out of compliance with the ordinance.
It is worded weird, for sure.
It's not artful.
Yeah.
I mean, what I had said all along was going back to this ordinance seemed to make sense because there had been developments. It did seem to work. The proposal we had from Resilience was very unlike anything that we we have. And this was seemed more reasonable.
And the fact that development happened under it just adds to the legal soundness of it.
Right, the presumption that what we're doing holds water.
Right.
Paul has a good point to say that back when this was in place, that's what every one of those units sold for.
Yeah. Right.
So it was almost like you got a density bonus.
Right.
And with the building costs, I mean, that's something to be considered.
It was an incentive.
Yeah, correct. You got the density bonus, but now, I mean, to be honest, it did work as intended, right? That they stayed at that level and have to sell at that level, while everybody around them went up to probably 600. That's just a guess.
What you notice is driving through Autumn Lane, many of the houses, in improvements over the years, attached garages, breezeways, but those affordable units are very easy
They
to
did
stop.
not, yeah, 'cause they didn't.
They couldn't recoup that
Right.
investment.
Although I think I've said before at meetings, one of the things that bothers me about this law is that people might not realize the gain, but I was forgetting they can if they stay for 30 years, which is also an incentive for people to stay in the community and be a part of the community.
Keep working here.
Oh, after 30 years, you're exempt?
Yes.
After
you-
30 years, the deed restriction disappears.
Yes, but you have to own it for 30 years. As soon as you sell it, that 30-year time clock starts over to the next person.
Does?
Yep, it does.
Yep.
Really? That's something I never understood. I thought
I'm not going, I don't have 30 years left.
A question was raised again by somebody about, I know this is deed restricted, but does anybody else track this? Does anybody else track this? Isn't this supposed to be a representative of the development
Well-
that tracks this?
The Board of Selectmen does track it.
They do?
At least they did as of 3 or 4 years ago. That was the last time I was asked to comment on it. But I think that the person that the town used to monitor died, and they were having difficulty finding a new person to monitor the restrictions.
Although the deed restricts anybody. that
It,
does a
it,
title
it is,
search.
right, it exists.
So Paul's doing his job and he uses the title, he's gonna see here, this restriction is not.
Right, that's,
But the monitoring, honestly,
I'm not around the Board of Selectmen ever looking at this.
honestly, Karen, I know, spent a lot of time looking for someone to act as a monitoring agent,
I
and
thought that was a responsibility of the HOA.
no, if you read the link that I sent you, that document, it goes into, I'm speaking to everyone. If you read that document, it tells you within that document how those things are monitored in that particular municipality. So there's a lot of great information in that. I know it's long, but it does go into the pros and cons of workforce, how it's monitored, the actual children that it, after 10 years that it put into the school system. It gives some really great data in there. So take a look at that and it'll tell you how other municipalities are monitoring.
I would assume that there is some information available somewhere in the select board office about that monitoring proposal.
I thought the HOA, they are responsible.
Well,
I honestly don't
They may have to
remember.
report, but
Right.
that report has to go somewhere, and it sounds like goes to the select board.
There was a person that compiled it for the select board, but
Who paid that person? I mean, we're getting on the weeds now.
I honestly don't know.
It's kind of like the other person we had that used to do the, you know what, you're reading my mind.
Task Montegary with it.
Task
Okay,
away.
I'm
Please don't- please don't.
hesitant, other than making that delineation between this workforce housing and multifamily. I'm hesitant to tinker with this in any
I tend to agree.
way. Public comment?
I was just gonna say, Mark, in your 121-page document, most of the towns required a document sent at the time of each sale to the planning board. And if there was a rental, every year showing that the renters met the income qualification. So,
Yes.
I mean, this goes back to my whole thing with all the site plans and the O&M plans, that whoever makes sure that they're doing it, let's put the onus on them, not the town having to hire someone. Why not put something in the ordinance saying, however it goes in the right place, at the time of every sale, a confirmation that it's been done legally under the sale price limits or whatever the right wording is sent to the planning board or the select board or whoever
Well,
the town.
The select board,
Yeah, I mean, it says the planning board in every one of these examples in the document, but
no. we don't
however you
want-
decide,
we don't
I'm
want
saying,
that.
why should
backing
we
off on
hire
that,
and
yeah.
pay someone? Let them put the onus.
But it even goes as far as to if you're renting an apartment and you're a single person renting it and someone else moves in with you, that's income within that household, and that needs to be taken into consideration to make sure it's workforce.
We don't
Now,
have,
if it's not, if you don't meet the standard of income level, then the next time you sign your lease, it goes up to market rate. But someone has to monitor that, and most of the time, it's a separate monitoring agent. And we don't want any part of that.
Just one other, there's a redundancy
Your land use
here.
administrator
If
does
I
not
could
want anything to do with it.
just point out when you were talking, number 2, the last phrase says that it will contain no more than 3 bedrooms for each unit, and then we just went through number 8, says the exact same thing, so that could be redundant, or it is redundant, and you may want to.
We don't need to have it in 2 places, and if we eliminate, that's the only thing in number 8 now. So we could delete number 8.
Just strike it.
And then 9 becomes 8.
So do we need to add anything about monitoring, or do we think, is that something that could be part of our regulations and be worked out at the time of a development rather than in our ordinance?
We could just add under number 3, monitoring for compliance with this section is the responsibility of the property owner. And that information has to be given to the Board of Selectmen annually.
But it wouldn't always be under the auspices of the HOA.
If there is one.
Well, of course there's one. I mean, like in Autumn Lane, I have conflict with this. I think number 3 says, and I've always been told this, I think from you, Glenn, that restriction holds for 30 years. It doesn't reset. It will reset if you sell it. If you sell it after 5 years, you're still governed to a maximum of 30 years, but 30 years it says period. It
I
doesn't
think,
go
I
on.
think state law says it resets if you sell it.
Let's see, could you come up with
Yeah, I was-
some language or show us?
It was in one of the examples of the document that I showed you.
Could you resend that to me?
I guess I'm not too concerned about the owned units because it's in their deed. It would just be, monitoring rent. So I don't know what monitoring even means if, I guess,
Well, I'm
they're
sure
just getting
if you don't
reports.
Sell it, if you sold it after a couple of years, it should be in charge more than whatever the cost of living index is.
But how-
The lender's gonna be in tune with that. So
You would think.
Yeah.
I don't think this is ever gonna happen in Brentwood.
Well, it did though. Happened twice.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm more worried about the rentals than the,
What's rentals in Brentwood, 3%? I mean, I don't think there's many. Yeah,
yeah.
gotta be forward thinking.
All the 50% of all those commercial buildings.
Touche.
All right, we'll work out the details on this monitoring thing, but is there anything else that we need to think about, or is that? Yeah, okay. All right, so we need to do a couple things. We need to, I'm gonna let Glenn work on the language over there. But going back to the commercial industrial, can we just do one motion to, overall, like this is what we'll put out for public notice with reverting 300-002-001-004 and 005, the setbacks, reverting those to the existing, and adding a section about requiring 50% of the first floor square footage to be reserved for commercial uses compatible with residential uses.
Moved.
Were those the only things?
On changing the maximum building coverage to 40%.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah, okay, yeah, and that's in the multifamily.
I'll second.
Do we want to put a monitoring sentence in here?
No.
Any other discussion? All
God, no.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. I can try to do this, like, are you gonna work on?
I'll do this tomorrow.
we'll talk about it. Okay. And then on the workforce, so we already have a hearing scheduled for next week.
But because we're doing these changes, it should really, next week, we should just continue it to the 29th.
Okay, I
Because
was,
we've changed this substantively, and it isn't 10 days between this week and next week.
and you wouldn't argue that we're just
29.
No,
clarifying which district this applies to?
nope.
So does he have to renotice it?
Yep.
Oh, no, all we have to do is continue it next
Continue
week
it,
to a
yeah.
time and date certain.
I thought,
Oh, you've changed it substantially, substantively.
Substantively, we have,
Yes.
but we have a public notice for a public hearing next Tuesday.
Right.
Next Thursday. And in order to continue the business from one public hearing to the next, all you have to do is notice it at that next public hearing. Because there can't be a breakdown where a person inquiring about this activity would get lost in the actions of a change.
but we want to post the language.
We want to post this language by Monday of next week.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what I mean. So just update the,
I'm going to come in on Monday. Glenn is going to send me the changes,
The changes to this and that.
substantial changes.
Yep.
I'm going to create public hearing notices
Correct.
and put them up online.
Monday's a holiday, Mark.
I will not be able to get to
He
the,
knows that.
Okay.
huh?
He knows that.
Monday's a
Just
holiday.
was reminding you. that
Thanks to you.
It was a holiday.
Yeah, oh, I know.
Okay.
Our,
But I have
so-
to do it that
So our
day.
grant, we get like, I don't remember, like 5% that helps go to defray the costs of administration. So if we go over on overtime, that's my argument, is that we're bringing in some money to help pay for that, so.
That's dedication for you.
Well, and I appreciate everybody meeting almost every Thursday this month.
Our pleasure.
All right, we do have some other business. Steph worked on a grant application to Plan New Hampshire that we talked about a
Oh, that's right.
few weeks ago. Thanks. And what do you need from us, Steph?
Has everyone had a chance to read it? I know it's
Hmm.
a little bit of a
I
tight
looked at it.
timeline.
Yep.
I guess where I'm hoping to land is a kind of tacit approval from the board to move forward and present it to the select board for their approval and endorsement. Because ultimately, if we're gonna submit the application, we would need a letter of support from them. But I don't want to present to them this board being okay with it.
Paul, do you anticipate any issues with that? This would be no cost to us, correct?
Mhm.
That's the goal.
Yeah, to give if you guys want, I know it's late, super quick, high-level overview.
Yeah,
The
that would
goal-
be helpful to
Yeah.
respond to Kristen's.
The goal of
Question.
bringing in this charrette is essentially, if we're successful in passing some of these ordinance changes, and we anticipate some additional development along 125, what we're trying to do with this charrette is bring in a group of professionals to hold this workshop, bring in community involvement, do this workshop and get some ideas of like what the town wants this corridor to look and feel like. Have them take in that feedback and give us some technical tools in the form of, I don't know, regulations and, I don't know, the jargon, but actual concrete information we can use and put in our ordinances that would steer development to look how we want. And I think this is a great way to get there without spending any money, because, you know, we only have Glenn for so many hours a week and he's already booked. None of us has the technical expertise to know how to do this. And it would cost tens, if not hundreds of thousands to hire consultants to do it. Otherwise, we'll just get development coming in looking however, it might be ugly or not. So we could kind of tailor it. Because we hear a lot, we don't want to be upping, we don't want to be Plastow. This is our chance to say what we do want to be and have it be professional and organized in a way that will achieve results.
You first brought up the topic, you said this is exactly what
I mean, I think it would be a great way to get professional assistance. And I have no problem taking concepts and turning them into regulations for our site plan review. But it would be great to have that as part of the public process. Instead of me just doing a look at other towns that might have good open space requirements for developments that don't fit us at all. It would be nice first to hear what we really want, and then change that into design language.
Yeah, I know that for some people there's a sour taste with how things went with the last charrette, and hopefully we can learn from that and try to improve upon the process. But the intent of these charrettes is bring in the community, get their feedback, turn that around into a professional, polished concept and plan, and then the town take that and pick and choose from it and move forward with it as they see fit.
So this would be for site plan review regulations,
It really
not for ordinance. And I think one thing, if this charrette question comes up, is the last one was really about something that the town was going to invest in, potentially. This is really to help with our site plan review.
It is much more defined. And so the charrette process should be more direct as well.
And we're also applying for, so there's the cost of the charrette, which this would cover, and then there's a separate thing asking for money for the food and.
Yeah, so the charrette fee is like $6,500. It's competitive, so we're applying. If we win, that would be waived. And then there's additional 500 to 2,000. It varies depending on where you are and who's coming in, to cover food and lodging that typically the town's responsible for, but we can apply for scholarship for that. And I put in a blurb about why we need it. We'll see.
It's step by step, so this is the first step.
Yeah.
Correct.
That was a motion I heard.
Do we have
So
a
you
second
would,
to?
present when?
Is it possible to present on Tuesday?
She has a February 1st deadline.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we just set the agenda, but if you want to speak with Julie, are you going to present this to the
Is
select board?
Julie there tomorrow?
Yeah, she does actually work Fridays.
She may.
Because she won't be
Yeah.
here on Monday.
No,
And we meet on Tuesday.
correct.
I can
She is
try
here
and
on Fridays.
catch her.
I can give her a heads up.
Okay.
I second it.
Yeah.
An edict.
I guess worst case, if I can't get it officially on the agenda,
I
is
get
there
in
like
trouble
a-
if I issue edicts.
Oh, then you have 3 minutes public
Is
comment.
there like a random public comment? I can just bring it up.
Well, and as our representative, you could bring it to the select board and just, we need a letter, is what we're asking for, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to come and present in my own words, whatnot, but if it's better coming from you, I'm happy to stand back and let you.
Well, I
present.
mean, you have more detail as, what it is, so
Okay.
I'd like you to present it, and then I can,
Sure.
endorse it.
Okay.
So we have,
How the board will react, that's always interesting.
If it's something for free, though, I think you guys often take this.
Yeah, I'll just try to lean on, this is our chance to
Yeah.
have
And-
a say in what. the
I think
look
if
and
I
feel of
endorse it, that will
125
be helpful.
Yeah.
it really helps
And
us.
it would help us evaluate proposals based on what people want and would not cost any money. So we had a motion
I seconded that.
to.
We have a motion to approve the submittal of the Plan New Hampshire charrette application. And Kristen made that motion.
And request a letter of support from the select board. And we had a second? Brett seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any? Groovy, okay.
I just want to say for the record, Glenn did the majority of the writing. I just kind of put it all together. I don't want to take credit for the nice writing.
What we want to just say is Steph and I worked on it.
And thank you for your hard work.
Yeah.
I should probably just formally abstain, I'm sorry, just because it'll get before me on Tuesday.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion for the minutes.
Second.
Who's the second?
Minutes of January 8th. Any changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain. I think I was
Any other business?
Motion to adjourn?
So accepted.
here. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, please turn off your mic.
I got it. You just press the camera.